Hey there, my name is Joe Meadows, and in this video, we're going to be talking about investigations. So it could be incident investigations, near miss investigations. We also kind of pile inspections into this pile. So yeah, we're going to be talking about how to create them, how to complete them, how the system works, all that good stuff. So let's get started. So we want to do anything with regard to investigations, we can go here to our company page, and you can see that we have an investigation section right here. So with that, we can click on this. We can see our various investigations. We can see what's in progress. In progress meaning that we have an investigation that is kind of ongoing. So we're still in that investigation stage, whereas a open investigation means the investigation itself has been complete. We have some mitigating actions, and we're still waiting for those actions to be finalized. Once all the actions are completed, it's going to move automatically to be a closed investigation. So we're going to cover all that in this video. So if we wanted to create a new investigation, there's two ways we could do that. We can either go to this view and we can press add here in the corner. Here, we're going to be able to explain what's the title, description, category. So again, based on what we choose, this is going to change a little bit. So it could be any of those three that I discussed earlier. And we're going to be asked to answer a few initial questions that will then generate the actual investigation report. So this is one way we could do it. Again, just coming to the investigations list and pressing add. We also have another way that we can create an investigation. And I want to just quickly touch on that because it really speaks to some of the things that we think are unique about what we do here at OpsLog. So one of our features that we think is really powerful is our workplace observation feature. So when an employee submits an observation, they could either be submitting a safety concern that we consider a near miss, or they can be using our impacts tool to report something where equipment's been damaged or somebody's been hurt or there's been an environmental incident. And we empower frontline employees to capture information and submit it via that observations tool. So if we go into this, we can see that we have a submitted observation where an employee, reported cutting their finger on a metal plate, and they used our observations tool to capture that information and formally submit it to management without, frankly, giving them access to complicated investigation forms or anything like that. So the information's been submitted to us. One of the tools that we give you in our triage section is the ability to turn an observation into an investigation. So here, we have an employee who submitted a cut finger. They've added an impact where Frank Grimes has lacerated his left hand with 3 small cuts. They've attached a photo. If I click start an investigation here, we're going to be taken to that same screen, but you'll see that the photo that the employee submitted is automatically going to be added. And once we actually get to the investigation form, some other information from that observation is going to be pulled through. So let's quickly jump into this as our example. So let's say finger injury, description, employee reported a cut finger. I'll keep this pretty light. Hopefully you'll be able to interpolate what we want to do here. So this is an incident. We've actually had something happen. Our location is going to be pulled from the observation. But again, just to reiterate, if you've built out your location tree, you do have that ability to kind of track things on a location by location basis. Investigation. So this is the person who's going to be leading this investigation. It's going to default to the user who it has initiated this process, but we can change it if we want to. Our initial response. So basically what we want to understand here is that we want to capture that what was done initially between the incident taking place and this report being started. So this might be something like first aid administered, employee stable, management notified. And the reason that we ask for this is that it makes sure that if anybody kind of sees this report while it's in progress, they won't be concerned that we have any loose threads. We want to understand that things are stable and our investigation is safe to proceed. Our investigation team, so this is basically going to determine who has access to this investigation while it's in draft. So all the folks that you add to the team will be able to get that access. And additionally, they'll all be asked to sign off on it before it's available for wider distribution. So based on the kind of policies and procedures in your company, we understand that that group of people is going to be different at different companies. So we're not imposing a lot of logic here. We just want to give you that freedom to make sure that all the right people have access. So once we press save, it's going to take this information that we've submitted and it's going to roll that over into an investigation report. So we can see that we now have that connected to the observation. It's taken us back to show us that that connection is made. And now the report here is all ready to go. We can see that, for example, a consequence has automatically been added, and that's been automatically added from the information that was submitted in that observation. So now I want to take you through all the steps here, but rather than making you watch me type everything out, I've prepped one of an investigation report that we can use as an example. So let me see if I can find it here. We'll use this one. Or let's just go back to the original. Okay, perfect. This one's awesome. So luckily it's actually the same thing that we submitted. I've used this example before. We can see the basic details. So now let's quickly run through the other information that you can capture using our incident investigation tool. So here under event information, we have the ability to just kind of work on certain things like event types, who's the responsible department. This is basically administrative information, not super important. Next item is timeline. So we understand that often with an investigation report, establishing the sequence of events is very important. So we give you this ability to enter various information, something that you can have everything to maybe like, let's say on March 1st was employee first day. I can add this to my timeline. That'll get added in sequence correctly. But one other thing I want to note is this key event toggle. So what we've added this because we understand that sometimes when you look at these timelines, it's very difficult to actually determine where the incident was and then what's the information before the incident and after the incident. So key event is where you're actually indicating when the various item took place. You can change what's the key event. So I could change this and that'll move that flag, but it's just a visual indicator to help anyone who's reviewing this report understand when's the primary event and then what's before and what's after. So that's what that toggle means. That's the kind of basics on the timeline. Consequences. So here in consequences, this is where we're recording the potential or actual consequences of this incident or near miss. If we have chosen to report a near miss and not an incident, we will only have the ability to add potential consequences because kind of by definition, a near miss is where something hasn't taken place. So anyway, let's just go through a quick example here. So if we had an injury, you can see here that it's going to default to an actual consequence. If we choose potential, a number of fields are going to disappear. Things like actual impact, which aren't relevant in the case of a potential consequence. So here we can, title, description, what's the actual impact? So it helps us to categorize each consequence. So if we have an LTI or a first aid case, we can do that. Injury category, again, that's for stats reporting, employee, all that good stuff. If we do change the type of consequence, you'll see that the fields change, making sure that we're collecting the right information and we're not presenting people with forms that are trying to cover every possible scenario. So here, this is again where you can add what are those consequences, what are the issues that have precipitated this report. Again, if we do choose a potential item, it's simply indicating that, if we look at these two examples, we actually had a cut to someone's finger, but potentially we could have had a long-term loss of finger mobility. And we think it's important to capture those potential events because those are what we should be sort of scaling our preventative and mitigating actions to make sure that the worst case scenario doesn't happen again. So that's how you can capture all of this. Next on our list is our findings. So in our findings section, what we have is the ability to come in and report either a root cause as well as any additional findings. And we've got a few things here that are already added. So if we have a root cause here where an employee was not provided with adequate training to understand proper gloves to wear to prevent injury, we have an analysis tree. So basically it starts on I went too far. on a kind of basic level, is this an external root cause, a human, a physical, or an organizational root cause? So if this was, in this case, a training failure, so that's organizational, then a training failure, and then in this case, we could say absence of training, and it was absence because the training requirement was not identified. So that's allowing us to kind of do that root style analysis. And now we can see that we have a few actions here. I'm not going to get into those right away, but I do want to note that we can add as many additional findings as we want. So these additional findings are really powerful because sometimes you're doing an investigation into a hand injury or some equipment damage, and the investigation team may find other things that they want to make sure are addressed that may actually be not related at all to the consequences of the incident. So here you could have something like material handling, but you could also say extremely rusted handrail found. And we can capture that just because we want to use this as an opportunity to improve as a company. So we can save this. We've got our findings all attached here. So now we kind of get to in many ways, the most important part of the investigation, which is how are we going to capture the things we're going to do to resolve this and make sure it doesn't happen again. And for us, that lives within this mitigation flow. So what we're able to do is create those sort of preventative and corrective tasks directly in the platform. If you want to learn more about tasks in OpsLock, there's a whole separate video on that. It's a really, really powerful feature that touches almost everything we do. But in the context of an investigation, basically all we need to do is click Add Mitigating Task. It's going to give us some basic details where we can assign this to somebody, give it a due date, identify it as critical, etc. But what's really, really neat is that if you're creating a task from an investigation, what it allows us to do is connect the action we're doing to a finding. So I added that we found an extremely rusted handrail. We could say replace handrail. If I can spell that, we can assign that to an employee, and now that's going to get added to the mitigation plan associated with our investigation. And then what's really neat is that when we do go back to those findings, we'll see that we can see the finding, and then we can see what's the action that we've chosen to make sure that this finding gets resolved. So it creates a really nice kind of feedback mechanism to make sure that you're buttoning everything up. File attachments. So again, we understand that we're not perfect and there's probably things we're missing that you want to add. We do give you that ability to attach essentially any file you want to the system. And I guess with that, one other thing I would like to just quickly mention is that we've made sure that all of these fields are optional. And the reason for that is not that we don't want thorough investigations to take place, but we do understand that at various companies, you may have a different level of scrutiny for an investigation with low consequences where maybe you don't need a timeline or things like that. So rather than trying to create very complicated options, we simply said, we're going to make everything optional, but then we're going to make sure that everyone on the investigation team signs off on the report. And in that way, you have a little bit of a check and balance that if anything's missing, it creates an opportunity for people to flag that and make sure that it gets edited before it goes more broad. So we'll go through that review process in just a second. One other note I just want to quickly share is we do have a comment section here in the same way we do on almost all of the various documents we manage. So if you do have any questions or comments, or you want to have a dialogue with the rest of the investigation team, you can do it right here. It'll be tracked. You'll have that audit history. It's really, really powerful. So anyway, let's dive into review. So once our investigation we think it's done, we can press review. And what it's going to do is it's going to take all the information we've collected and bring it up to the top level. So here we can see that instead of having to go into a bunch of menus, we can see everything right here. And we can see what's going on. If we're happy with all this, what we can do is we can press send. What it's going to do is it's going to say the content of the investigation will be locked. These users will be notified, and they'll all need to sign off on it before it proceeds. So here, we've done that. We've sent it off. They're all awaiting a signature. All those people would receive a notification saying, hey, you've been asked to sign an investigation. They'll all have this chance to review. And if they're happy, they can sign. I can sign for myself right here. So now I've got that signature in place. One thing to note is that if somebody signs and then another signatory says, you know what, there's something missing here, or I don't like the way you wrote this, it's not locked forever. At any point, we can edit this, but what that's going to do is it's going to remove all those signatures. So nobody's going to sign something that then changes afterwards. So now we go back to our edit view, and essentially the process just restarts. We go to review, we can send it out. Everyone's going to get notified that they got that. We can get those edits in place. And that's that. If at any point you want to print this, you can do so. We've designed the page in such a way that you'll be able to either print it or save it as a PDF. If you do need to share that with anybody, you can do so. That's it. One final note, something I forgot to mention earlier, but I'll just get in as kind of a point of order, is that there is one setting for investigations, and that's our customer field. So for certain customers, we understand that they want to be able to add a field that indicates that who was our customer when this incident took place. That's important for some folks, but it's also completely irrelevant for others. So we've created an option here that allows you to toggle that on if you do want to add that to your investigation reports, or toggle it off if it doesn't make any sense. So that's where that is if you do need to make those changes. And that's with the rest of our kind of health and safety settings. So that's it for the investigations video. I hope you found this helpful and it made some sense. If not, please reach out to us. If you have any suggestions for improvement or ways things could be better, we are here to listen, and we just want to improve to be the best possible platform that we can, so that more people can get home safe. So I hope you have a great day, and thank you again for your time.